Welcome to Books on Point. In 1899, Thorstein Veblen coined the phrase conspicuous consumption to describe status seeking in the obscenely unequal world of late 19th century America. Many of the aspects he described in the theory of leisure class are still evident in our world. Today we're talking about Conspicuous Consumption in Africa, which is a collection of essays that explores the ways in which conspicuous consumption is foregrounded in various African contexts and historical moments. We're joined in studio by Sifiso Mnisi, who is one of the authors of an essay that looks at the subculture of none other than ukukhothane. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Nastassia.
So this is a collection of essays. We'll talk a little bit also about how you got involved in the project, but let's expand a little bit on Thorstein's theory around conspicuous consumption. What can we gather from that with regards to how the wealthy displayed their riches?
So Thorstein Veblen was an American sociologist and economist of the 19th century. So he was interested in this thing of the elite distinction, where he focused on how the wealthy tried to distinguish themselves from the poor in order to gain social status amongst their peers. So what he did is that he looked at how they would consume expensive things, not necessarily for the utility value that these things contained, but rather for the symbolism of these things. So then he spoke about it in terms of being conspicuous consumption. So consuming things mainly to show people that you have got money in order to receive a high social status. Yes.
All right, so let's talk about ukukhothane. What prompted the idea to write about them?
I was very, very interested by the subculture, especially when it gained traction and a lot of media attention between 2011 and 2012, because we saw these young men from the township, predominantly coming from impoverished economic backgrounds, all right, being children of working class parents, for example, and how they engaged in conspicuous consumption, buying expensive things and theatrically destroying them. And to me, that was something very, very fascinating. And then I wanted to understand more as to why these kids were doing this. And then in this chapter particularly, I focus on a group from Tembisa in an area called Pumulong. They are called the Goodfellows, and they also engage in this type of consumption. But what is very, very interesting about ukukhothane is that it is a subculture that has been criticized a lot in the country because of the destruction aspect of it. But that is not all that they are. There are levels of being ukukhothane. There's the first level where we call them the entry level of being ukukhothane. That is where the destruction is most prevalent, because they're still most probably trying to cement themselves, trying to get attention by destroying these expensive things. And then there's the level where they are now a bit more matured and they stop destroying things. They simply now focus on parading their elegance. And then there's the final level, which is the post-ukukhothane phase, where they call themselves legends and focus, for example, on mentoring other upcoming ukukhothane.
But the historical elements of who they are isn't anything new. I mean, we've seen it in Europe with the so-called dandies, and we've also seen it in South Africa in the 1950s, Oswenga in Jipperstown. Take me through, the research that you went through in putting this chapter together, specifically your learnings about this kind of lifestyle.
So ukukhothane, as you have rightly mentioned, they are not a very, very new subculture in South Africa that has focused on dressing very well in order to be respected. That means we've mentioned, we've seen Oswenga in the 1950s in South Africa, which were predominantly Zulu migrant mine workers who would host like amateur fashion shows in Jipperstown. Now, they wore very, very expensive suits that you would not expect someone who was poor to wear, for example. And we've also seen such subcultures as well in other African countries, such as Congo, for example, where we have the Sappers, who also dress elegantly in order to gain that respect from people. And you ask yourself, why do then people feel the need to consume well beyond their means in order to be respected by people? Now, there's an emerging field in South Africa, particularly called the bottom of the pyramid consumption. It's the BOPs. So the BOPs are known for, so firstly, they are generally poor. So there would be people who make a monthly between 500 rands or 2,500 rands. All right. And they would use their money in most cases to buy things that symbolize wealth. And then you ask yourself why. Now there is something that we often ignore, the pain that comes with living in an impoverished environment, that comes with poverty, and the perceived lack of respect that you receive when you live in poverty. And now people try to hide that pain, try to sort of portray an image of wealth which is often associated with respect. Now, ukukhothane, they live in communities. They don't live in a vacuum, all right? So what they are doing is not something that is strange. It is something that happens in society as a whole. They are not the first people to parade wealth. All right. It's just that they don't have the actual wealth, but they do that in order to gain that respect. But it is something that they see in our societies, something that is happening. Both South Africa has a very, very strong materialistic culture.
Right. This happens in the context of poverty, as you mentioned. How is this lifestyle funded?
It is very, very interesting. Most often I hear people, when I speak about ukukhothane, asking me if they are involved in any criminal activities. Well, the ones that I researched, they are not involved in criminal activities. They fend for themselves. They often say, Italian guameleli spin, which means that an Italian man must work hard. All right. So they do things ranging from having a car wash. There's a car wash in Pumulong, for example, with this the good fellas that I'm working with, called Mangoba's car wash. So they have the car wash to raise money. When they get invited to certain events to perform, they charge a fee. Others also have jobs that they do.
All right, we'll definitely want to have you back on the show because these are a fascinating group of people and of course the learnings behind them. And the one critical part is how should we as the media view them, because they've been taking a lot of backlash. But that is Sifiso Mnisi talking to us about one of the essays he's written in this book titled Conspicuous Consumption in Africa. Our recommended book for the week is titled Personal Branding for Entrepreneurs by Donna Rachelson's book offers practical advice on real-life examples from 7 successful entrepreneurs. The 7 come from different industries and are at different stages of their personal branding journeys. Yet what they offer is applicable to most businesses, and the experiences can help you to build and market your own personal brand. So thank you from myself. That's it from the News at 1 team. We'll be back tomorrow. Goodbye.